He moved soundlessly through the grand entrance hall, shoulders hunched, guiding his custodian's cart with the tentative movements of someone who wished to disappear. Within these walls of steel and glass, where fortunes changed hands behind sealed conference rooms, lived a man the world refused to see, a phantom in a palace of power. Yet Marcus Hartwell accomplished what seemed utterly impossible. Because the small child everyone in this tower feared approaching, the daughter of billionaire Vivienne Sterling, seemed beyond all reach. That child, 7-year-old Lily Sterling, had once been the radiant center of an empire's joy. Now, only devastating silence remained. 8 caregivers had departed in defeat. Mental health professionals had surrendered their efforts. She shrieked when shown tenderness, recoiled from every touch, and imprisoned her spirit behind impenetrable barriers. Until one unremarkable Thursday afternoon, when Marcus was cleaning the polished floors near the elevator bank and detected a muffled whimper from behind a marble pillar. He paused, abandoning his mop, and approached with caution. Then he lowered himself gradually, delicately, as though one wrong movement might shatter something precious beyond repair. From his uniform pocket, he withdrew a small treasure, something seemingly insignificant that somehow froze time itself for several heartbeats. And then, impossibly, the girl's tears ceased. Nobody in this corporate fortress understood what had just transpired. Nobody realized that the man pushing the cleaning equipment had once been an extraordinary father before tragedy stole everything from him. And Vivienne Sterling, formidable as she was, stood on the precipice of witnessing something that would transform her existence forever. But could a man who'd lost everything truly rescue a child drowning in her own grief? The answer would come in ways nobody expected. Quick pause before we continue. If you're watching this from somewhere in the world right now, let me know in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're enjoying stories like this, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because tomorrow's episode, it goes even deeper than this. On the 30th floor of Sterling Biotech Industries, deep in Manhattan's gleaming heart, floor-to-ceiling windows captured the city's brilliance below. In silence so profound she could detect her own pulse, Vivienne Sterling stood motionless, staring at her computer display. Before her lay the 9th psychiatric evaluation concerning her daughter, Lily. Patient demonstrates complete rejection of unfamiliar individuals, severe post-traumatic stress disorder manifestations, unresponsive to cognitive behavioral interventions, unresponsive to therapeutic play sessions, psychiatric hospitalization strongly advised. Recommendation: brief inpatient treatment. Vivienne slowly shut the laptop. Absolutely not happening. At 41, this CEO commanded a $3.2 billion biotechnology kingdom, directed 2,000 employees, brokered agreements with international governments, and made choices affecting millions of lives. Yet now she stood utterly helpless before a 7-year-old girl. Since the afternoon, Jonathan Sterling, her husband, her daughter's father, their family's foundation, perished in an aviation disaster 3 months prior, Lily had become a hollow version of herself. Those eyes, belonging to someone barely 7, held an emptiness most adults would never dare confront. What had happened to the laughing child who once filled these halls with joy? And why was Vivienne, who controlled billions, powerless to reach her own daughter? 3 months earlier, Lily had been this office's sunshine incarnate. She'd burst into her mother's workspace clutching a crayon masterpiece. "Mommy, look, I drew our family, 3 of us, you, Daddy, and me." Jonathan had laughed, swept his daughter skyward, and twirled her around. "You know your mother's the most brilliant woman alive." "I know," Lily had giggled. "But Daddy's the greatest." Their laughter had filled every corner then. Now only the mechanical hum of climate control remained, accompanied by the sterile scent of copy paper. The framed photographs still occupied their shelf positions, but the vitality within them had vanished. Vivienne entered the specialized room designed exclusively for Lily, filled with playthings, art supplies, gentle illumination, and surveillance cameras monitoring every angle. In the furthest corner, Lily sat huddled, gripping a worn doll, the final present from her father. "Lily, sweetheart," Vivienne knelt, maintaining vocal composure. "Today we're meeting a new specialist. She's wonderfully kind. You'll—" The scream shattered the atmosphere. "No more doctors, I want Daddy." The doll sailed across the space, striking the doorframe. Vivienne froze completely, hands quaking. A woman capable of directing a global enterprise couldn't figure out how to embrace her own child. The girl had constructed fortifications around her heart. And regardless of Vivienne Sterling's power, she couldn't locate the entrance. For 3 agonizing months, she'd attempted everything imaginable, but nothing worked. Nothing. Until Marcus Hartwell. The first nanny, Mrs. Patterson, boasting 25 years' experience, resigned after 4 days, when Lily trapped her on the balcony for 2 hours. The second, Rebecca, a specialist in exceptional needs children, departed after 6 days upon discovering a chunk of her hair had been severed while she slept. From the 3rd through 8th caregivers, none survived beyond 1 week. And the therapists, Dr. Hamilton from Yale, Lily maintained absolute silence through 5 sessions. Dr. Nguyen, a trauma specialist, Lily screamed until her face turned purple the instant she entered. Every professional afterward documented identical conclusions in their assessments. This child requires time, or a miracle. But Vivienne Sterling had ceased believing in miracles. Her phone interrupted the silence. The human resources director's voice emerged, cautious yet strained. "Mrs. Sterling, the board is expressing concern regarding your personal circumstances. Your recent meeting absences could impact." "I'm aware," Vivienne interrupted sharply. "I'll address it." But truthfully, she had no idea where to begin. 3 canceled investor meetings, 2 crucial contracts declined, company stock declining over 12%. And investors had started questioning, can this CEO still manage her corporation? Yet the woman who once dominated the business world was losing the one thing irreplaceable, her daughter. That night, alone in her office, something inside Vivienne finally broke. That evening, Vivienne sat isolated in her workspace. Beyond the glass, the metropolis glowed like molten amber against the darkness. On her desk rested an aging folder, wedding photographs of her and Jonathan, images of infant Lily, snapshots from their Italian vacation the previous summer. Jonathan's voice resonated in her memory, deep, comforting, tender, like a distant song. "You know, Vivienne, you can outperform anyone, but what I cherish most is watching you love Lily without ever needing to prove anything." She smiled weakly, a tremulous smile like a fracture in perfect crystal. Because now she was failing at both, being an exceptional CEO and being a complete mother. When the first tear in 3 months struck the desktop, Manhattan's lights blurred in her vision, as though the entire city wept alongside Vivienne Sterling. Meanwhile, across the city in Queens, another broken soul was preparing for another day of invisible existence. 6 a.m., the aging apartment complex in Queens remained wrapped in damp, frigid darkness. The alarm had sounded at 5:30. Marcus Hartwell silenced it and rose without activating the lights. He'd grown accustomed to darkness. It had become his sole faithful companion for years. 38 years old, yet he appeared at least a decade older. Silver threads touched both temples. His deep brown eyes bore lines carved by countless sleepless nights and extended years of solitude. He entered the adjacent room, a small vacant space containing only a single bed, a desk, and photographs attached to the wall. Pictures of a young boy, straw-colored hair, a missing front tooth, blue eyes clear as summer skies. Caleb. Marcus stood motionless for several seconds, seemingly reluctant to depart. Every morning he paused before the largest photograph, Caleb grinning, embracing a stuffed dog. "Good night, my little boy," he whispered, despite the sunrise approaching. Then he quietly shut the door, carrying that familiar weight within his chest, a heaviness that had never diminished. 6 years earlier, everything had been different, but one afternoon changed everything forever. The small apartment had once overflowed with laughter. "Daddy, look, I constructed a castle." 5-year-old Caleb sat surrounded by a chaos of colorful Lego blocks. The castle leaned precariously, ready to collapse, but in his eyes it represented an entire kingdom. Marcus had knelt, smiling, and pulled his son into his arms. "It's magnificent. My boy's a genius architect." "You really think so, Dad?" "I really think so. You can become anything you want." "Then I'll build a castle for you to live in." "For me, why's that?" "Because you deserve it. You're the best dad in the world." Marcus had said nothing more. He'd simply held his son tightly, battling tears. He hadn't known it would be the final time he'd hear that laughter. Now on the crowded subway car, Marcus sat silently in a corner wearing his navy blue custodian uniform. The Clean Corp Solutions logo on his chest was threadbare. Surrounding him, everyone stared at their phones. Nobody looked at anyone else. He opened his weathered canvas bag, a cold lunchbox, an apple, a small notebook, and a cloth pouch. Inside that pouch resided his entire world. Handcrafted toys, a patched teddy bear, a felt rabbit, a miniature wooden car. Clumsy, imperfect. But every stitch and carved edge carried warmth that money could never purchase. Once, Marcus had been a preschool educator at a small private school in Brooklyn. He'd loved that position, loved the children, loved how they perceived the world through clear, innocent eyes. He'd been married to Amanda, a nurse at a children's hospital. They had Caleb, and though life was modest, their small home brimmed with laughter. Each night when Amanda worked the overnight shift, Marcus would tell Caleb bedtime stories, not from books, but from his imagination. Once upon a time, there was a rabbit who couldn't hop. All the other rabbits mocked him, but he didn't surrender. He practiced every single day, and one day he jumped higher than all the rest. Caleb tilted his head. "Dad, why didn't the rabbit give up?" "Because he knew a secret." "What secret?" "That what makes us special isn't what we're naturally good at. It's that we never abandon our dreams." Caleb nodded, eyes sparkling. "Then I'll never give up either." Marcus had laughed, ruffling his son's hair. He hadn't known that was the last night he'd ever tell Caleb a story. The accident happened on an autumn afternoon, leaves scattered across the road. Amanda was driving Caleb home from school. A truck lost control. a devastating collision at an intersection. Amanda survived with wounds that would never truly heal. Caleb didn't. Marcus received the call while teaching. He bolted from the classroom, ran like a madman to the hospital. His heart pounded as though it would explode. When the doctor emerged, one look in those sorrowful eyes conveyed everything. Marcus collapsed to the floor, screaming soundlessly. Amanda never forgave herself. "It's my fault. I wasn't paying attention. I killed our son." "No, Amanda," Marcus said, gripping her trembling hand. "It was an accident." "No, I should have died instead." They attempted to continue, but the little house was no longer a home. Every room became a nightmare. Marcus couldn't enter Caleb's room. Amanda couldn't bear viewing family photographs. 6 months later, he awakened to discover a letter on the kitchen table. "Dear Marcus, I can't survive with this pain anymore. Every day I see Caleb's face, hear his laughter, then realize it's just in my head. I'm not as strong as you. I'm sorry. I love you, but I have to go." Amanda, she departed that night and never returned. Marcus searched everywhere, hospitals, relatives' homes, even mental health facilities, but Amanda had vanished as though she'd never existed. He lost his son, then his wife. And after that, he slowly began losing himself. He couldn't return to teaching. He couldn't look at children without seeing Caleb's face among them. He resigned, sold the apartment, relocated to Queens. In the years that followed, Marcus did everything: waiter, driver, mover, whatever paid bills, until he found employment at Clean Corp, an outsourced janitorial company for corporate buildings. When the manager asked why he wanted the job, he answered simply, "Because nobody notices the janitor, and I don't want to be seen anymore." But there was one thing Marcus never abandoned. Every night after work, he sat alone beneath weak yellow light, stitching scraps of old fabric, carving bits of wood, making toys the way he once did for Caleb. A teddy bear from an old shirt, a rabbit from worn felt, a wooden car from popsicle sticks. He didn't know why he continued. Maybe because when those little things took shape, he felt Caleb was still there, smiling, running, calling out "Daddy," just like before. And sometimes in dreams, he could still hear his son's voice. "Dad, you make the best toys." Each time that happened, he'd smile through his tears, because that tiny echo of love was the only reason he remained alive. But everything was about to change, because sometimes the broken are the only ones who can heal the broken. Wednesday afternoon. The Sterling Biotech Industries building shimmered under fading sunlight. Marcus Hartwell had been working there for 2 months. He arrived before 6 every morning, quietly mopping floors, emptying waste bins, tidying conference rooms. Nobody called him by name. They simply knew him as the janitor on the 30th floor. But while everyone else raced through million-dollar reports and high-stakes negotiations, Marcus noticed the small things. He noticed the little girl who always sat alone in the executive hallway, where light poured through glass walls, cold and sterile as ice. She wore an oversized hoodie, hair loosely tied, clutching a worn-out doll. She didn't look at anyone, didn't speak. Her eyes remained fixed on the floor as though the world outside no longer held anything worth seeing. But those eyes, Marcus recognized them instantly. They were the eyes of a child who had lost a piece of her soul. The same look Caleb had in his final days. He shook his head, trying to push the memory away, and returned to his work. Then came Thursday afternoon, 3 o'clock. The moment that would change everything. The 30th floor lobby was nearly empty. Most employees had gone to the cafe or were locked in meetings. Marcus was mopping the marble floor near the elevators when he heard it. A faint sound buried beneath the hum of the air conditioner. Not a loud cry, but a muffled one, shaky, restrained, filled with despair. He froze, listened. The sound came from behind the last marble column at the end of the hall, a hidden corner with no security cameras where the light dimmed. He hesitated. He knew he wasn't supposed to interfere. A janitor didn't belong in the world up there, but that cry, it pulled something deep inside him. Memories of Caleb trembling through nightmares, whispering, "Daddy?" in fear. Before he even realized it, Marcus's feet were already moving toward the sound. What he found behind that column would change 3 lives forever. Behind the column, Lily Sterling sat curled up, knees pulled tight against her chest, face buried in her arms. Her small body shook, not from cold, but from pain that swallowed her whole. Marcus stopped, keeping a respectful 3-step distance. He said nothing, then slowly he knelt. His knees touched the cold marble, the sound dry and hollow in the silence. Lily didn't look up, but her breathing changed, shorter, uneven. She could sense someone there. Marcus stayed quiet. He simply sat there beside her, motionless. 5 seconds, then 10, then longer. A gentle stillness filled the space between them. He set the mop aside, quietly reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object, a teddy bear. He'd sewn it the previous night using a scrap from his old sweater. Faded brown, clumsy stitches, one ear larger than the other, 2 button eyes, shiny yet sad. Marcus placed the bear on the floor halfway between them. No words, no gestures. He just sat there, slightly leaning back, keeping the safe distance. No pressure, no demands, only presence. Time seemed to stop. A minute, then 2. Lily slowly lifted her head. Her eyes were swollen, lashes stuck together with tears. She looked at the bear, then at the quiet man sitting across from her. Marcus didn't smile. He simply nodded once, gently. His eyes kind and calm as a breeze. The girl reached out, trembling, and touched the bear. Then she hugged it tight. The fabric was soft, warm, and it smelled like safety, like a person, like something long lost but real. And for the first time in 3 months, Lily stopped crying. Not because someone told her to stop, but because at last she felt allowed. Allowed to be weak, to hurt without being judged. Marcus stayed there, silent. He gave her time to breathe, to settle, to just be. After 5 minutes, he quietly stood, picked up his mop, and walked away, never once looking back. But someone had been watching, and what she'd witnessed would shatter everything she thought she knew. Up on the 30th floor, in an office surrounded by glass, Vivienne Sterling stared at the security footage. The image of a man in a blue uniform kneeling beside her daughter, saying nothing, just placing a clumsy little teddy bear on the floor. It made her chest tighten painfully. She raised both hands to her mouth. Tears streamed down her face, dripping onto the keyboard. She had just witnessed a miracle, and the man who performed it was someone nobody had cared to notice for the past 2 months. The next morning, Vivienne Sterling arrived at the office earlier than usual. She hadn't slept the entire night. She'd sat watching that same security footage again and again. Dozens of times. That man, the janitor on the 30th floor, what had he done to Lily? He hadn't spoken, hadn't touched her. He had simply sat there, quiet, simple, patient. And then Lily stopped crying. Vivienne still couldn't understand it. How could a stranger, untrained, unqualified, do what 9 professionals had failed to do? She grabbed the phone, her voice urgent. "I need information on the janitor from the 30th floor." Male, mid-30s to 40s, brown hair. The HR manager's voice crackled through the speaker. "You must mean Marcus Hartwell. He's with Clean Corp, an outsourced contractor." I want his file now. An hour later, the file appeared on her screen. Name Marcus Hartwell, 38, address. Queens education. Bachelor's in early childhood education, Brooklyn College, previous occupation. Preschool teacher, Little Bright Stars School, 2012-2018, reason for leaving, not specified, current job. Janitor, Clean Corp Solutions, 2020, present, Vivienne frowned. A preschool teacher turned janitor. Something didn't add up. She typed quickly, sending a message to a private investigation firm. I need everything you can find on this man. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Lily Sterling, the child who hadn't left her private room in 3 months, opened the door and walked out. Nobody told her to, nobody begged. She simply held her teddy bear and walked. She didn't take the elevator. She was still afraid of enclosed spaces. She walked down the stairs, one slow step at a time, as though afraid the fragile magic holding her together might shatter if she moved too fast. In the downstairs lounge, Marcus was wiping the coffee tables, his movements steady, patient, as if he were polishing away his own sadness. Lily stood about 5 meters away, hugging the bear tightly. Marcus sensed something. He turned around, their eyes met. 3 seconds of silence, then Lily walked closer, slowly, and sat down on the floor 3 steps away. Marcus said nothing. He kept cleaning. 5 minutes later, he set the cloth aside and sat down, closing the distance to just 2 steps. From his shirt pocket, he took out a plastic bottle cap. He placed it gently on the floor between them, and with a low, calm storyteller's voice, he began. Once upon a time, there was a tiny bottle cap. Everyone threw it away because they thought it had no value, but the cap didn't feel sad because it knew a secret. Lily's eyes widened. She listened closely. What secret? She whispered, her voice shaky and rough from disuse. Marcus looked up, surprised. It was the first time he'd heard her speak. He smiled softly and said, the cap knew that its worth wasn't about how others saw it, but how it saw itself. Lily clutched her bear tighter. Was the cap sad? Marcus paused. Such a simple question, yet it pierced straight through him. He took a slow breath and nodded. Yes, the cap was very sad, but then it met a friend, and that friend showed it that being sad doesn't mean you're weak. The girl looked down, her voice barely audible. Are you sad too? He smiled faintly, though pain shimmered behind his eyes. I used to be very sad, and sometimes I still am. Why? Because I lost someone very important. She looked up, whispering, I lost my dad too. Marcus's heart clenched. He met her eyes and said quietly, I know, and I'm so sorry. Then they sat there in silence. No more words were needed. 2 souls, one man who had lost his child and one little girl who had lost her father, sat side by side, sharing their pain in quiet understanding, not through language but through empathy. Up on the 30th floor, Vivienne Sterling watched the security feed, tears streaming down her face. Her daughter was talking for the first time in 3 months. And she was talking to the man everyone in the building had dismissed as invisible. Vivienne didn't know what to feel, relief, envy, or gratitude. Perhaps all 3 at once. That night in his small apartment in Queens, Marcus opened the door to the old room. Moonlight spilled across the photos of Caleb. He sat down and spoke softly as if his son could still hear him. Hey, buddy, I met a little girl today. She's a lot like you. She's hurting too. He smiled faintly, his eyes glistening. I don't know if I can help her. I couldn't even save you. But when I looked into her eyes, I saw you, and I thought, maybe this is how I get to start again, not to replace you, but to let you live on through what I can still give. Marcus leaned his head back against the wall. Outside, the distant rumble of the subway echoed through the night. And for the first time in 6 years, he felt he had a reason to keep living. But their fragile connection was about to face its greatest test. In the days that followed, the halls of Sterling Biotech Industries began to witness something extraordinary. Every day at exactly 3 p.m., little Lily Sterling appeared in the ground floor lobby, a place nobody had ever imagined she'd set foot in again. She sat beside the janitor from the 30th floor, Marcus Hartwell. They didn't talk much, she simply listened. Marcus told her stories built from the smallest, most ordinary things: a plastic spoon that turned into a princess, a paper cup that became a castle, a cleaning rag that became an ocean. No expensive toys, no high-tech therapy rooms. Just imagination and someone who knew how to listen. Gradually, the office workers began to notice. They passed by, glanced over, then smiled softly. Nobody dared to interrupt, afraid to break whatever fragile magic was unfolding before them. The only one brave enough to approach was Mrs. Delgado, the warm-hearted, round cafe manager from Mexico, 55 years old with a kind smile. From that day on, she left a cup of hot chocolate on the table every afternoon. "Para la niña," she whispered to Marcus, smiling gently. "For the little girl." One afternoon, Marcus told a story about a turtle that couldn't swim. "Once upon a time," he began, "there was a turtle who couldn't swim. All the other turtles could, but not this one. Every time it went into the water, it sank." Lily tilted her head and asked quietly, "Why couldn't it swim?" "Because it was afraid," Marcus said. "It almost drowned once." "So what did it do?" "It stopped trying to swim," he replied. "Instead, it learned how to walk on the ocean floor." Lily frowned, her little brow creasing. "But it can't breathe underwater." Marcus smiled, soft, calm, and steady as the wind. "That's true, but it found a way. It rested in the caves where air bubbles stayed. It learned to live with its fear instead of giving up." She was quiet for a moment, then whispered, "Was the turtle happy?" "Not always," Marcus said gently, "but it kept living." And one day it met another turtle who also couldn't swim, and they walked together. Lily nodded slowly, her lips trembled. "I'm the turtle that can't swim." Marcus looked at her, his eyes tender and deep. "So am I," and in that moment 2 broken souls, 1 child, 1 man, found each other in the vast ocean of pain. Friday, Vivienne Sterling decided to meet the man herself. She stepped out of the elevator, her high heels clicking sharply against the marble floor. Marcus was cleaning the glass wall, his reflection flickering in it. "Mr. Hartwell." Marcus turned, startled. He recognized her instantly. Vivienne Sterling, the CEO, Lily's mother. "Yes, ma'am." Vivienne approached, her eyes sharp yet softer than they'd ever been on television. "How long have you worked here?" 2 months, ma'am." "Do you know who Lily is?" "Yes," he said after a pause. "Your daughter. And you've helped her." Her tone wasn't questioning, it was a statement. Marcus didn't know how to respond. He remained silent. She continued, her voice trembling slightly. "For 3 months, I've hired 8 nannies and 9 therapists, spent over $300,000. None of them could reach her, and you, with just a teddy bear, did the impossible." Marcus bowed his head modestly. "You're giving me too much credit. You used to be a teacher," Vivienne interrupted. Marcus froze. Vivienne met his eyes. "I checked your records. You have a degree in early childhood education. You taught for 5 years, then quit. Why?" He gripped the handle of his mop tighter, eyes fixed on the floor. "That's personal, ma'am." "I have a right to know," she insisted. "You're interacting with my daughter. I haven't done anything wrong." "I know," she said softly, But I need to understand, why would a teacher become a janitor, and how did you help Lily when nobody else could? A long silence. Then Marcus looked up, his voice low but steady. Because I know how she feels. He paused, taking a deep breath. I lost a child once. Vivienne froze. The air between them seemed to solidify. You lost your child? Marcus nodded, saying nothing more. Vivienne stared at him for a long time. For the first time, her eyes weren't those of a CEO, but of a mother looking at a father who had lived through her greatest fear. I'm sorry, she whispered. It's all right, Marcus said quietly. It was a long time ago. But the pain. It never really goes away, does it? No, he said softly. It just becomes part of who we are. They stood there in silence, not as boss and employee, but as two people who had both lost something irreplaceable. Vivienne drew a deep breath and said gently, would you keep helping Lily, not as a janitor, but as a friend, someone she trusts? Marcus looked up, surprised. You're asking me to stay? Vivienne said firmly. I'll pay you whatever salary you want. Marcus shook his head, a faint smile appearing on his lips. I'm not doing this for money. Then what for? He turned toward the cafe where Lily sat holding a cup of hot chocolate, a small smile on her face. Because maybe this is how my son would want me to keep living. Afternoon light streamed through the glass, reflecting the image of three people, each carrying their own wounds, yet beginning a journey of healing together. No drama, no spectacle, just understanding and kindness. The kind that sometimes is the only real miracle. But their story was about to take a dark turn, because not everyone believed in miracles. 3 days later, the investigative report landed on Vivienne Sterling's desk. She sat in her office, the glow of the monitor highlighting her tired face. The papers trembled slightly in her hands. Marcus Hartwell, complete file, married to Amanda Mitchell, 2013, one son. Caleb Hartwell, born same year, October 15, 2018, severe traffic collision. Amanda was driving their son home when her car was struck by a truck at the Flatbush Avenue intersection. Amanda survived, mild brain injury, fractured ribs. Caleb, age 5, died 3 hours later at the hospital. Vivienne covered her mouth, her breath catching. Tears welled in her eyes as she read on. After the accident, Marcus Hartwell requested indefinite leave, never returned to teaching. Amanda Mitchell admitted twice to psychiatric care for major depression and suicidal intent. In April 2019, she left home without leaving an address. Marcus relocated to Queens, living alone, no criminal record, no debts. Neighbors said, quiet man, he sits in the park, watches the kids play, but never goes near them. Vivienne closed the file, her heart heavy. Now she understood. Marcus wasn't just a man who happened to help Lily. He was a father trying to save another child because he couldn't save his own. That afternoon, Vivienne summoned Marcus to her office. Not the main boardroom, but a smaller, warmer space she used when she wanted to escape the cold world of numbers and negotiations. Marcus entered, uneasy. Sit down, Vivienne said, motioning to the chair across from her. He sat back straight, hands folded stiffly on his knees. Vivienne slid the folder across the desk. I know about Caleb. Marcus froze, his knuckles turned white. She continued, her voice soft but steady. I'm sorry, no father deserves to endure that. Marcus said nothing, his jaw trembled slightly. Vivienne took a breath, her voice breaking. I lost my husband 3 months ago. Plane crash. He was on his way home. Lily and I were waiting at the airport. Her words faltered. Then the phone rang. They said the plane went down. No survivors. Marcus looked up, eyes warm and sincere. "I'm so sorry," he said quietly. "Thank you," Vivienne nodded. "But I wanted to tell you this. I understand your pain, and I think you understand Lily's." Marcus's voice grew low, thoughtful. "She feels like part of her died, and nothing can fill that space." Vivienne nodded, tears shimmering. "Yes, but you did what nobody else could. You made her feel allowed to hurt, to cry, to remember." Marcus exhaled slowly. "That's all I ever wished someone had told me. After Caleb died, everyone said, 'Be strong, move on.' But I didn't want to move on. I wanted to grieve. I wanted to remember him." Vivienne wiped her eyes gently. "You still make toys for Caleb, don't you?" Marcus looked surprised. "How do you know?" "I noticed every toy you've given Lily handmade, sewn with care and love." Marcus smiled faintly, the sadness in it unmistakable. "Yes, I make one every night. So I can feel like he's still here somewhere. And now you give them to Lily. Maybe that's what Caleb would want. Maybe that's how he still helps other children, through me." Vivienne stood and walked to the window. Afternoon light fell softly across her tired but gentle face. "Marcus, I'd like to ask you something, not for the company, for my daughter." Marcus looked up. "What is it you want me to do?" "Stay, not as a janitor, as Lily's friend, someone she can trust." He hesitated, then spoke quietly. "But I'm not a therapist. I have no credentials. You have something no degree can teach, heart and understanding. What will people say?" "I don't care what they say," Vivienne replied firmly. "I care about my daughter, and for the first time in 3 months she smiled, because of you." Marcus sat in silence for a long moment. Then he nodded. "I'll stay, but on one condition." "What condition?" "I don't want Lily to think I'm replacing her father. I'm just a friend, someone who listens." Vivienne smiled softly and nodded. "That's exactly what I want too. And about Caleb, please let's keep that between us." "I promise." Marcus stood and extended his hand. Vivienne took it, not the handshake of a CEO and her employee, but of two people learning to live again after loss. But there was someone else who knew, someone more perceptive than anyone realized: Lily. One afternoon, as Marcus was telling a story, she suddenly asked, "Mr. Marcus, do you have a child?" Marcus froze, his heart thudded. "Why do you ask?" "Because you tell stories just like my dad. He told them the same way." Marcus swallowed hard, voice trembling. "I used to. Where is your child? He's not here anymore." "Like my dad." "Yes, like your dad." Lily was quiet for a while, then placed her tiny hand over his. "Are you sad?" Marcus smiled sadly, eyes glistening. "Every day." "Me too. Every day I miss my dad." Their hands, one big, one small, clasped tightly together. No more words were needed. "What was your child's name?" Lily asked. "Caleb. Did he like your stories?" "He loved them." "Then when you tell them to me, he's listening too, right?" Marcus's throat tightened. He could barely speak. He simply nodded. Lily hugged her teddy bear and whispered, "Then I'll listen carefully, for me and for Caleb." And at that moment, Marcus wept. For the first time in 6 years, he cried in front of a child. Not from pain, but because at last he had begun to heal. But healing is never a straight path, and sometimes the world isn't ready to accept miracles. Rumors spread through Sterling biotech industries like wildfire. By mid-morning, everyone had heard the same story. The CEO hired a janitor to care for her daughter. It didn't take long for the board of directors to call an emergency meeting. 40th floor. The air inside the conference room was tight as a drawn bowstring. Patricia Crawford, 58, silver hair neatly combed, a senior board member, stood up, her voice cool but measured. "Vivienne, we've always respected you, but this decision, it's incomprehensible. Mr. Hartwell is a janitor. He has no psychological certification. If anything goes wrong, this company faces serious legal liability. Vivienne's tone stayed calm, her eyes locked on Patricia's. He helped my daughter. David Brennan, another member, interjected. Are you aware he lost a child? That could influence how he interacts with Lily. Vivienne rose, her voice low but sharp as steel. I know exactly what happened to him, and that's precisely why he understands my daughter better than anyone. A few others started to speak, but Vivienne cut them off. That's enough. This is my decision. Anyone who disagrees is free to leave the table right now. Silence fell over the room. Patricia sighed, shaking her head. Vivienne, you're acting out of emotion, not logic. Vivienne met her gaze, her voice deep but unwavering. Emotion. For 3 months, my daughter hasn't spoken, hasn't smiled. She just stares into nothing. All your so-called experts have failed. Yet one man, no title, no degree, made her smile. So don't talk to me about logic. Logic can't save my child. Nobody said another word. A week later, the storm hit. The front page of the New York Tribune screamed a sensational headline. Billionaire Vivienne Sterling hires janitor to care for daughter. Scandal or desperation? The article spread like a virus. Sources inside Sterling Biotech Industries confirm that CEO Vivienne Sterling hired janitor Marcus Hartwell to accompany her daughter after the tragic death of her husband. Hartwell, 38, has no psychological credentials. He is a former preschool teacher who quit after a family tragedy. Is this an act of compassion or a mother's emotional breakdown? Within hours, social media exploded. Hashtags Vivienne Sterling and Marcus Hartwell climbed to the top of trending lists. Supporters wrote, "She's just a mother trying to save her child. You don't need a degree to heal. You need heart." Critics fired back. "This is a scandal. She's blinded by emotion. That man could be dangerous. What do we really know about him?" Vivienne said nothing publicly. But inside, she knew. The storm was only beginning. 3 days later, the NYPD received an anonymous complaint. Marcus Hartwell is behaving suspiciously around a child. That afternoon, 2 police officers arrived at Sterling Biotech headquarters. Marcus was in the ground floor cafe with Lily, telling her a story about the singing paper boat when a firm voice sounded behind him. "Mr. Marcus Hartwell." He turned around slowly and nodded. "Yes." "We need to speak with you for a moment." Lily startled, her eyes wide. "Who are they, Uncle Marcus?" Marcus knelt slightly, trying to keep his voice calm. "It's all right, sweetheart. They just want to ask a few questions." But panic flashed across the girl's face. She clutched his hand tightly, tears welling. "No, they'll take you away, just like they took my dad." The cafe fell silent. Marcus knelt fully now, eye level with her, his voice gentle. "I promise I'm not going anywhere, okay?" But the officers stepped closer. "I'm sorry, sir, you'll need to come with us for questioning." At that moment, another voice rang out, strong, commanding. "What's going on here?" Vivienne Sterling, one of the officers, turned. "Mrs. Sterling, we received a complaint and need to verify some information." "Complaint about what?" "I'm afraid that's confidential during investigation." Vivienne stepped forward, placing herself between Marcus and Lily. "Mr. Hartwell works for me. If you want to ask questions, you'll go through Sterling Biotech's legal team." "Ma'am, we're just doing our job." "And I'm doing mine, protecting my employee. Without a court order, you have no right to take him." A tense silence filled the space. Finally, one officer murmured, "We'll be back." They turned and left. Lily still clung to Marcus's hand. Vivienne looked at him, her eyes both firm and filled with empathy. That night, Marcus went to see Vivienne in her office. He was no longer composed. Worry clouded his face. "I think I should leave." Vivienne looked up. "No, I'm causing trouble for you and for Lily. You're helping her, that's all that matters." Marcus shook his head, voice breaking. "They won't stop, Vivienne. They'll dig into my past, about Caleb, about Amanda, and when they do, they'll turn me into a monster." Vivienne stepped closer, her tone steady, resolute. "Then we'll fight." "I don't want to fight," Marcus said, eyes red. "I just want Lily to be safe." "She won't be safe if you walk away, you know that." Marcus said nothing. The soft, yellow light glowed over both their faces. Two people who had already lost everything, now standing on the edge of another battle. And in that quiet moment he understood. Leaving was no longer an option, but the worst was yet to come. Because sometimes the greatest test arrives when you least expect it. It was a Thursday night when everything finally seemed to be settling back to normal. And then in an instant it all fell apart. Vivienne was still in her office, buried under reports and meeting schedules. The clock read 10:00 p.m. Her phone rang. It was Maria, the temporary nanny. "Mrs. Sterling, Lily, she's gone." Vivienne froze, her heart stopped mid-beat. "What did you just say?" "She was in her room. I just went to the kitchen to grab some water. A few minutes, I swear. When I came back, the room was empty. She's gone." The phone slipped from Vivienne's hand and hit the desk. In that moment, she wasn't the powerful CEO of Sterling Biotech Industries anymore. She was just a mother in sheer panic. She called security, the police, activated the entire building's emergency alert. But before doing any of that, she dialed one number first, Marcus. "Lily's missing." Marcus answered the call while driving home. The second he heard the words "missing child," he slammed the brakes so hard the tires screeched across the asphalt. "How long has it been?" "About 30 minutes. Was she carrying anything? Just her teddy bear and her sketchbook." That was all he needed to hear. Marcus already knew where she was, the old Sterling Biotech headquarters. The building where Jonathan Sterling, Vivienne's late husband, once worked had been abandoned for 2 years. Long ago, Lily had asked Marcus a question. "Uncle Marcus, where did my dad used to work?" "At the old building near the park." "I want to go there someday." That's where his memories are, right? He had smiled back then, never imagining that one simple memory would lead him to tonight. He sped through the quiet streets until the silhouette of the old tower appeared, its rusted metal sign still faintly reading Sterling Biotech headquarters under the pale street light. The main entrance was locked, but Marcus knew another way. The side door, the one janitors once used. He slipped in with an old key. The building was pitch black. "Lily, where are you?" No answer. Only his own echo bouncing off the cold marble walls. He climbed, 3rd floor, 4th, and then on the 5th, Jonathan's old office. He saw it. A faint glow beneath the door. Marcus pushed it open. In the corner of the room, Lily sat curled up, clutching her teddy bear under the beam of a small flashlight. Her cheeks were streaked with tears. "Lily!" She looked up, voice trembling. "Uncle Marcus!" He ran to her, dropped to his knees, and pulled her into his arms. "You scared me half to death." "Why did you run away?" Through sobs, she whispered, "I just wanted to find my dad." You came here to find him?" Lily nodded, eyes glistening. "This is where he worked. I thought if I came here, I'd feel closer to him." Marcus held her tighter. "But you know he's not here anymore." "I know, but I miss him so much. I want to hear his voice again. I want him to hold me." Her voice broke into quiet sobs. "I don't want to forget him, Uncle Marcus." Marcus lifted her chin gently, meeting her eyes. Those same hazel eyes that mirrored Vivienne's and maybe Jonathan's too. "You'll never forget him. He's in you every single day." But what if one day I forget what he looks like? Marcus smiled faintly, his voice as soft as a lullaby. Then look in the mirror. You have his eyes, his smile, and his heart. Every time you see yourself, he's right there looking back at you. Lily burst into tears, wrapping her arms tightly around him. But I want him here. I want him to tell me stories again. Marcus held her close, gently rocking her. I know I want my son here too, every single day. And there, in the darkened halls of a forgotten building, two souls, both broken by loss, found solace in each other. The sound of heels echoed down the hallway, followed by the beam of flashlights. Vivienne appeared in the doorway, flanked by security and police officers. The moment she saw Lily in Marcus's arms, she raised a trembling hand. "Stop," she said softly. Everyone froze. "Lily." The little girl turned around, her eyes still wet. "Mom." Vivienne rushed forward, dropped to her knees, and held her tight. "You scared me to death, sweetheart. Where did you go?" "I'm sorry, Mom. I just wanted to find Dad." Tears spilled down Vivienne's cheeks. "I know, baby, I know. I've been looking for him too, every single day." Lily looked up, then turned toward Marcus. "But I don't have Dad anymore. I only have Mom and Uncle Marcus." For a long second, Vivienne looked at Marcus, her eyes filled with gratitude, exhaustion, and something deeper. Thank you for finding her." Marcus shook his head, voice trembling. "I didn't find her, ma'am. She found me from the very beginning." And there in that old dust-covered office, among the ruins of an empire and the ghosts of memory, three people stood together at last. A mother, a father, and a child, not bound by blood, but by the kind of pain that, when shared, becomes love. But their journey was far from over, because sometimes the greatest battles are fought not against the world, but for the right to heal. After the night Lily disappeared, Vivienne Sterling knew she couldn't stay silent any longer. She called a press conference. That morning, before a room packed with hundreds of reporters and flashing cameras, the CEO of Sterling Biotech Industries stepped up to the podium. Her voice calm, steady, but resolute. "My name is Vivienne Sterling, and today I want to talk about my daughter." The room fell utterly silent. 3 months ago, I lost my husband, and my daughter lost her father. That kind of pain can't be put into words. I tried everything to help Lily, hired the best specialists, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. Nothing worked. She paused, letting the silence settle, her gaze locked on the rows of cameras before her. "Until I met Marcus Hartwell." She paused, letting the silence settle. "He's not a doctor. He's not a therapist. He's simply someone who's felt the same pain my daughter feels, and there are things no classroom can teach." A reporter raised a hand. "Mrs. Sterling, aren't you worried about your daughter's safety?" Vivienne took a deep breath, her voice unwavering. "My daughter is safer than she's ever been, not because he has a certificate, but because he has a heart. And if this world keeps valuing credentials over compassion, maybe we're the ones who need healing." The room stayed frozen in silence. The only sound left was the relentless clicking of cameras, capturing the image of a mother unafraid to show both her vulnerability and her strength. 1 week later, Vivienne announced a new initiative, Caleb's Light, a free program for children coping with grief, trauma, or loss. No degrees required, only a heart willing to listen. She asked Marcus Hartwell to lead it. He refused at first. "I'm not a leader." "You're the only one who can do this," Vivienne replied. "You understand these kids. You know how to make them feel seen and heard." "I've never run a program before." Vivienne smiled softly. "Then we'll learn together." Marcus finally agreed, but on one condition. "It has to be called Caleb's Light so my son can still be part of it in his own way." Vivienne nodded gently. "Agreed." A month later, Caleb's light opened on the ground floor of Sterling Biotech's new headquarters. No glass conference rooms, no luxury decor, just a warm, cozy space, thick rugs. Golden light, shelves filled with handmade toys. On the main wall hung a photo of Caleb, smiling wide, his front tooth missing. Beneath it, a line of words read, "Sometimes the brightest light comes from the smallest hearts." During the first week, only 3 children showed up. A 6-year-old boy who'd lost his mother to cancer, an 8-year-old girl caught between 2 homes after her parents' divorce, a 9-year-old boy bullied daily at school. Marcus sat with them. He didn't teach. He didn't preach. He simply listened. Then he told a story not from a book, from the heart. Once upon a time, there was a little star. It wasn't as bright as the others, so it thought it was useless. But one night, a lost child wandered into the forest, and the star's faint light was enough to guide the child home. From that night on, the star realized our worth isn't measured by how brightly we shine, but by who we shine for. The children listened, eyes wide, breath still, as if the world outside had vanished. And in the corner of the room, Lily sat beside a new girl, holding her hand. "It's okay," Lily whispered. "Mr. Marcus will help you. He helped me too." That evening, after all the children had gone, Marcus and Vivienne stayed behind in the quiet room. The city glittered through the glass beyond them, distant, peaceful. Vivienne looked up at Caleb's picture and asked softly, "Do you ever regret it?" "Regret what?" "Staying, opening up again." Marcus was silent for a moment, his eyes still on the photo. "No, at first I thought I didn't deserve to be happy again, but Lily taught me something, that loving again doesn't mean forgetting." Vivienne nodded slowly, smiling through her tears. "I've learned that too, from you." Marcus chuckled lightly. "I didn't do anything." "You did," Vivienne whispered. "You showed me that strength isn't about never falling apart. It's about getting back up and helping someone else stand with you." They sat there for a long time. No words, no need. That silence itself was peace. The kind both had been searching for all along. Saturday evening, Marcus stopped by Vivienne and Lily's home. No longer a high-rise penthouse, but a small, warm apartment in Brooklyn. "I wanted to start over," Vivienne had once said. Lily opened the door, beaming. "Uncle Marcus, you're here." She tugged him inside, leading the way to the kitchen. The table was neatly set, no lavish dishes. Just pasta, salad, and toasted bread. "I made it myself," she declared proudly. "You did, it smells amazing," Marcus laughed. "Mom only helped a little, I did the rest." Vivienne watched them, a strange warmth blooming inside, the kind she thought she'd lost forever the day Jonathan died. During dinner, Lily talked excitedly about Caleb's light. "A new boy came today. He was really sad, but when Uncle Marcus told his story, he smiled." "Mom," Vivienne looked at her daughter, then at Marcus. Her voice softened. "Thank you. For what?" "For giving my daughter back to me." Marcus shook his head gently. "No, ma'am, she was never lost. I just helped you see her again." After dinner, Lily pulled Marcus into her room. She pointed to a large drawing taped to the wall, colorful, clumsy, but full of heart. 4 figures stood together. A tall man, Jonathan, a woman, Vivienne, a little girl, Lily, and another man, Marcus. Beside Marcus stood a small boy holding his hand. "That's Caleb," Lily said with a shy smile. "I drew him here so he wouldn't feel lonely." Marcus went still, speechless. He knelt and hugged her tight, tears streaming down, but this time they weren't from grief, they were gratitude. "Thank you, Lily, thank you so much." In that small, softly lit room where past and present quietly met, they didn't just find each other again. They found themselves, because sometimes healing doesn't begin with forgetting. It begins when you dare to love again. 1 year later. 1 year later, Caleb's light was no longer just a small room in the lobby. It had grown into 10 centers across the city, reaching more than 200 children and dozens of volunteers. Not professionals with fancy titles, but people who had known pain and chose to stay to help others find their way out of the dark. And among them, Marcus Hartwell was no longer the invisible man. He had become a mentor, a guide, a quiet light. And above all, a father not by blood but by heart. At the anniversary celebration, Marcus was invited to speak. He stood before hundreds, children, parents, volunteers, even the journalists who once doubted him. His hands trembled slightly. "I'm not a great speaker," he began softly. "I'm just a father who once lost his child." The hall fell still. You could hear the breath of the crowd. "6 years ago, I lost Caleb, my son, 5 years old, in a car accident. At that time, I thought that was the end of fatherhood, the end of every kind of love I knew." His eyes drifted to the front row where Lily sat beside Vivienne, holding her mother's hand, beaming up at him. "But then a little girl showed me that love never really ends. It only changes form. Caleb isn't here anymore, but he lives in every story I tell, in every child I help, in every smile I see." His voice broke slightly. "And that's why Caleb's light isn't just for children who are hurting, it's for the grown-ups too. The ones who have forgotten that we can still love even after our hearts have been broken." When he bowed his head, the whole room rose to its feet. Applause thundered, echoing through the hall, and Lily ran onto the stage, throwing her arms around him. "I love you, Uncle Marcus." He hugged her tightly, tears glistening. "I love you too, Lily." After the ceremony, Vivienne and Marcus stood together on the rooftop terrace, looking out over the glittering night skyline of New York. A soft breeze carried the faint scent of rain. Vivienne spoke quietly. "Can you believe it? A year ago, I was a desperate mother, and you were the invisible man." Marcus smiled. "And now," she turned to him, her eyes gentle, "now we're a family." Marcus blinked, unsure he'd heard right. "A family?" Vivienne nodded, her voice warm. "Lily sees you as her second father, and I see you as a friend, a brother, a piece of our lives I didn't know we needed." Marcus looked down at his hands, a small smile forming. "I never thought I'd get a second chance. But that little girl, Lily, she saved me." "And you saved her," Vivienne said softly, touching his hand. They stood there in silence, watching the city lights shimmer below. Two people who had once lost everything, finally finding peace. Vivienne asked, "Marcus, do you ever think about the future?" "Why do you ask?" "Because I want you to stay, not just with the program, but with us, with Lily, with me." Marcus turned, surprised. "Are you saying?" She smiled before he could finish. "I'm not talking about romance, Marcus. I'm talking about family, the kind made from souls once broken who still choose to love, not perfect, but real." Marcus looked at her for a long time, then nodded slowly. "I want that too. I'm just afraid." "Afraid of what?" "Of losing again." Vivienne squeezed his hand. "Then we'll be afraid together and heal together." For the first time in 6 years, Marcus's heart no longer felt empty. Sunday morning, Central Park. Lily was on the swing set, Vivienne gently pushing her. Marcus sat on a nearby bench, smiling softly as he watched. Beside him lay a photo album. Pictures of Caleb grinning with his missing tooth. Pictures of Lily, her hair blowing in the wind. And one photo of all three of them together, Vivienne, Lily, and Marcus. Not a traditional family, but one built from love, not replacement, but continuation. "Uncle Marcus, come push me," Lily called out. He laughed, getting up. "All right, princess, your turn." Laughter filled the morning air. Vivienne watched them, tears falling silently, not of sorrow, but of joy. Sometimes miracles don't come from experts. They come from ordinary people, people who understand pain because they've lived it. Marcus Hartwell wasn't a hero. He was simply a father who lost his son. But through that loss, he found another child, not to replace Caleb, but to honor him. And Lily, the girl nobody could reach, now runs, laughs, and lives because someone saw her, sat beside her, and didn't try to fix her. He simply stayed, quiet, patient, loving. That's the real miracle, not healing completely, but learning to live with the wound, together. Today, Caleb's light operates in more than 30 cities, helping over 5,000 children and families. If you or someone you know is living through loss, remember, you are not alone. And the light is still there. The sun dipped low over the park. Lily's laughter echoed as the swing rose higher, while Marcus and Vivienne sat side by side, silent, peaceful, needing no more words. The story ends, but the healing continues. Because within each of us there is a Caleb's light. A small flicker that may lose its way, but still has the power to guide someone home. What moment in this story touched your heart the most? Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can save an entire world. Because a man who's lost everything can still save a child who's losing herself, not through expertise, but through understanding. Not through credentials, but through the courage to love again. Up next, you've got 2 more incredible stories waiting on your screen. If this one hit you, tap to watch the next, and make sure you're subscribed with notifications on. Oh, and drop your city in the comments. I want to see where you're watching from.